Imagine this. You wake up in a world where everyone wears a badge on their chest. Some glow gold, others pulse red, a few shimmer in icy blue. The badge doesn't just decorate. It defines. It declares whether you are good, bad, or something in between. And here's the twist. No one chooses their badge. You're handed one the moment you're born. Society, with all its laws and algorithms and virtue signals, fastens it to your chest before you can even walk. And once it's there, it becomes your truth. You walk through life believing that gold means righteous, red means corrupt, and blue means complicated. You judge others by their badges. You love, trust, hate, or dismiss them based on that single glowing emblem. And they do the same to you. But one day, in the reflection of a stranger's eyes, you glimpse something that chills your spine. Your badge flickers. Just for a second. Gold turns red. Red flashes gold. The label trembles. What if morality isn't fixed? What if goodness isn't a trait, but a performance? And what if evil doesn't wear horns, but a calm smile and a polished reputation? You pause. Look around. You realize something terrifying. Everyone is pretending. And worse, they don't know they're pretending. Now imagine waking up from that world, only to discover it wasn't a dream. It's the reality we live in. Morality in the 21st century is not about virtue. It's about visibility. It's no longer about what you do, but how it's framed. A soldier kills and is called a hero. A whistleblower speaks and is branded a traitor. A billionaire donates and is praised, though the donation barely dents the harm they cause. Meanwhile, an ordinary person missteps once, one bad tweet, one recorded outburst, and becomes pariah. And here you are, in the middle of it all, trying to be good, trying to make the right choice. But right according to whom? And why do the goalposts keep moving? You felt it before, haven't you? That uneasy dissonance when your instincts pull one way, but society demands another. When your conscience whispers one truth, but the world screams its opposite. When someone bad shows you compassion and someone good looks the other way. You've asked yourself in secret, what if good people do bad things? What if bad people do good things? What if these labels are illusions, and we're all just trying to survive under the weight of a system that thrives on division? Now consider this. In ancient times, evil was simple. It was a dragon, the demon, the heretic. But in today's world, evil might be algorithmic, sanitized, hidden in a user agreement, or tucked into the silence of bystanders. And good? Is it the charity donation you post on Instagram? Is it standing up for justice, even if it costs your comfort or your job? Is it empathy in the face of vengeance? We live in a paradox. Never before have we talked so much about ethics, yet never before have moral lines been so blurred. Cancel culture punishes sinners and makes saints out of victims. But who decides who is a sinner? AI models now help judges determine guilt. But the data they're fed is biased. Is that justice? Your actions are tracked, your opinions quantified, and your virtue is measured not in deeds, but in metrics, likes, retweets, trends. In such a world, how do you know you're actually good? Would you act the same if no one could see you? Would you still believe in right and wrong if no one ever rewarded or punished you for it? So here's the question that should keep you up at night. What if morality in the 21st century is no longer about ethics, but optics? What if you're not actually free to be good or evil, but only allowed to mimic the performance of either? What if, just like those badges in the imagined world, your goodness is an illusion crafted by culture, algorithms, and fear? And more importantly, if goodness is a role we play, who wrote the script? And who benefits when we follow it blindly? These aren't just abstract musings. They cut to the core of what it means to live authentically. Because if you don't understand the forces that shaped your moral compass, you're not holding the compass. It's holding you. Imagine how much of your guilt, shame, pride, and self-worth are built on foundations you never laid. On values passed down like family heirlooms but never questioned. On media-fed righteousness and mass-manufactured outrage. It begs one final question, one that tears through the illusion like a blade. If you were never taught what good and evil meant, what would you believe instead? The foundation beneath your feet is beginning to crack. In the next chapter, we dig deeper. We peel back the layers of psychology and philosophy. We expose the ancient mechanisms that still drive your morality today, often without your consent. And once you see them, you can never unsee them. Shall we? You weren't born with a sense of good and evil. It was etched into you bit by voices you couldn't question, parents who praise obedience but confuse it with virtue, teachers who rewarded silence, not courage, institutions that insisted morality was black and white, even as they trafficked in shades of gray. But here's the devastating truth. Most people's concept of morality isn't chosen. It's inherited, and it's haunted. Haunted by the ghosts of ancient archetypes. Haunted by cultural guilt, religious dogma, and the primal fear of exile. Carl Jung warned us, deep in the basement of your psyche lives a shadow, the dark half of your being that you disowned, the part of you that rages, hungers, lies, envies, desires, the part you were taught to hide. Society trained you to fear it, to cast it out, to call it evil. But Jung argued something far more disturbing. If you do not face your shadow, it controls you. That means the more you repress what you label bad, the more it leaks into your life unconsciously, through self-sabotage, projection, hypocrisy, and violence, personal or collective. This explains why moral crusaders often harbor secret shame, why saints become tyrants, why the most rigid moral systems breed the most shocking scandals. You've seen it. The preacher who embezzles, the activist who bullies, the nice guy who explodes when rejected. These aren't exceptions. They're symptoms of a deeper illness, a morality built on suppression rather than integration. Now turn to Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who set morality ablaze. He dared to say what few had the courage to. Morality is not divine. It is man-made and often designed to serve power. In his groundbreaking work Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche dismantled the idea that there is a universal moral code. Instead, he argued that what we call good is often just what the weak call safe, and what we call evil is what the powerful call threatening. He traced the origins of our morality back to a cultural shift, when Christianity, once the voice of the persecuted, rose to dominance and rebranded humility, obedience, and weakness as virtues. Blessed are the meek, it said. And suddenly, pride became sin. Passion became lust. Strength became cruelty. To Nietzsche, this slave morality was a reversal, a coping mechanism by those without power. But once embedded, it hardened into gospel. And you inherited it. You were born into a world where those old scripts still govern your deepest instincts. But let's go even further back. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that behind all morality lies a deeper, blind force, the will to life, a chaotic, ceaseless urge to survive, reproduce, dominate. We mask this drive with moral language. We call it justice, mercy, law. But underneath it all, he warned, morality may be nothing more than camouflage for desire. You feel it, don't you? That tension between what you want and what you believe is right. That whisper in your mind that says, if no one saw this, would still be wrong? What if morality is a performance not for God, but for society's eyes? Then there's Aldous Huxley, who in Brave New World described a future not ruled by fear, but by pleasure. In his dystopia, morality is dissolved not by tyranny, but by distraction. People are so comfortable, so endlessly entertained, that they no longer care to ask what is right or wrong. They surrender meaning for convenience, depth for dopamine. Sound familiar? In the age of social media, moral conviction often competes with virality. Complex issues are compressed into hashtags. Outrage becomes currency, and the line between genuine ethics and performative signaling dissolves. You might speak up because you care, or because silence is punishable, or because virtue is trending. The truth is, you may not even know why you believe what you believe. And here's the cruelest twist. Your brain is wired to protect illusion. Cognitive dissonance kicks in whenever your actions contradict your values. Rather than change behavior, you change the story. You rationalize. You distort. You forget. Confirmation bias ensures you only seek evidence that supports your moral worldview and reject what threatens it. The just world fallacy whispers that good people get rewarded and bad people get punished, even when the world clearly proves otherwise. These psychological defenses were meant to keep you sane. But in a world built on contradictory values, they become the bars of your mental prison. And then there's shame. Deep, internalized shame is morality's cruel enforcer. Not guilt, the feeling that I did something wrong, but shame, the belief that I am wrong. From childhood, shame is weaponized to teach you right from wrong. Don't cry. Don't shout. Don't want too much. Don't be angry. These emotions weren't immoral. They were inconvenient. And so you buried them. But emotions don't die. They metastasize. They become depression, addiction, passive aggression, hatred of others who mirror the parts you buried. This is where Jean-Paul Sartre's insight hits hardest. He believed that human beings are condemned to be free. That means you always have a choice, but that freedom is terrifying. So you hide behind roles. Morality becomes your mask. You say, I'm a good person, and try to believe it. But that declaration often means, I follow the rules society gave me. I don't ask dangerous questions. I play my part. But now the mask is cracking. You're beginning to see it. Your sense of good and evil didn't emerge from your soul. It was constructed, layered, branded, and policed. You absorbed it from parents who feared scandal more than sin, from teachers who punished questions that went off script, from religions that taught obedience and called it faith, from screens that blurred the line between entertainment and ethics. And worse, this morality is self-replicating. You now pass it on, to friends, to children, to strangers online, not because it's right, but because it feels safe, familiar, justified. But what if safety is the enemy of truth? Here's the ticking time bomb. If your morality was engineered by forces you never chose, how can you call your life your own? You're standing at the edge of a realization that your most sacred values might not be sacred at all, that your sense of self might be constructed from inherited lies, and that the good person you think you are might just be a character in someone else's story. What happens when you stop playing your part? When you strip away the performance, the programming, the praise? Who are you then? In the next section, we trace the devastating effects of this inherited morality, not just in your mind, but across entire societies. We expose invisible systems that exploit your moral confusion for control, for profit, for silence, because what you thought was virtue may actually be the leash. And soon, you'll feel its pull. You think you're making your own choices. You think you're standing on moral ground, solid and sure beneath your feet. You vote. You donate. You apologize when you're wrong. You cancel someone when they cross a line. You defend the oppressed. You call yourself good. But what if even your sense of agency is a mirage? What if your morality, sculpted by ancient fears and modern manipulations, is no longer just personal, but weaponized? Because here's the secret they never taught you. When morality is programmed, it becomes a tool. And tools are always wielded by someone. The consequences of inherited, performative morality are not just philosophical. They're systemic, neurological, and dangerously invisible. Let's begin inside your own mind. Neuroscience reveals that moral decision-making isn't purely rational. The brain processes moral conflict in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the same area involved in emotion, not logic. This means your ethics are soaked in feeling before they ever touch reason. Your brain lights up differently when you think about the pain of someone from your tribe versus someone from outside it. It empathizes selectively. It protects those who look like you, vote like you, think like you, and demonizes the rest. This is the birth of moral tribalism. You think you're defending justice, but often you're defending identity. And when identity is at stake, truth becomes optional. Enter the outrage economy. In the digital age, morality is no longer internal. It's interactive. You perform it publicly, in tweets, likes, shares, comments. And in return, you're rewarded with dopamine. Each moral outrage becomes a currency. You call out a brand. You shame a stranger. You share a scandal. Your outrage gets traction, attention, applause. But here's what you don't see. Behind the scenes, algorithms amplify your morality like a drug. selecting for controversy, tribalism, and simplistic narratives. Not because they care about ethics, but because outrage increases screen time. More screen time means more ads. More ads mean more money. Your virtue is monetized. Your values are manipulated. You're not evolving as a moral agent. You're being trained, like a lab rat pressing a lever for a pellet of validation. Now widen the lens. Think of modern politics. The left screams for justice. The right demands order. Both sides moralize. Both believe they are righteous. But beneath the slogans, morality has become a weapon of mass persuasion. Social identity theory tells us that belonging to a moral group boosts self-esteem. So political movements offer more than policy. They offer moral identity. They tell you, we are the good, they are the evil. But here's the cost. When morality becomes identity, disagreement becomes heresy. Dialogue dies. Truth becomes tribal. And the moment someone on your side behaves monstrously, your brain rushes to justify it. Because to admit it would threaten your very sense of self. The system doesn't want you to think. It wants you to belong. Because belonging controls behavior more effectively than fear ever could. Let's go even darker. Corporations now speak the language of virtue. They declare support for causes. They launch rainbow campaigns in June, Black Lives Matter banners in July, eco-conscious packaging in August. But what are they really selling? Your identity, your moral self-image. Buy this shoe, and you're supporting women. Buy this phone, and you're saving the planet. Post this graphic, and you've done your part. Meanwhile, behind a glossy facade, they exploit labor, dodge taxes, and pump CO2 into the atmosphere. It's not just greenwashing. It's virtue laundering. And you participate. Not because you're stupid, but because you've been taught that morality is consumption. That being good means making the right choices in the marketplace. But how can buying be moral when the system itself is designed to exploit? Now imagine the child growing up in this world. From the moment they can swipe a screen, they're taught that morality is public, performative, that what matters isn't how you treat others in silence, but how well you post, signal, align. They're being raised in a culture of hypermorality, but with no internal compass, only external approval. This breeds a generation that is anxious, perfectionistic, and terrified of moral failure, not because they want to do good, but because they fear exile. Social media is not a mirror. It is a stage. And children are learning their lines before they understand the script. Now step into the geopolitical arena. Moral narratives justify drone strikes. Moral language sanctions the starvation of nations. Moral superiority cloaks economic imperialism. The good guys always win because they write the story. But who defines good? And who pays the price when morality is used to mask greed? Nietzsche once wrote, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies." Because convictions give us license. They allow us to silence, to invade, to destroy, in the name of justice. And now, the most intimate consequence of all, your own moral self-image becomes your cage. You want to change careers, but fear being selfish. You want to end a relationship, but feel guilty for hurting someone. You want to speak a painful truth, but you're told that's not kind. So you stay. You suffer. You silence yourself because your morality has become a prison of impossible ideals. You try to be good, but feel like a fraud. You try to be kind, but suppress your anger. You try to love everyone, but lose yourself. This isn't virtue. It's moral masochism. You were taught that morality would make you whole, but it split you into the self you present and the self you repress, into the beliefs you preach and the truths you hide, into the version of you that's applauded and the version that cries in the dark, asking, what if I'm not good? What if I never was? Now ask yourself, if your morality is infected by bias, fear, performance, profit, and programming, if it leads to judgment instead of empathy, obedience instead of freedom, anxiety instead of peace, is it really morality at all? Or is it control dressed as conscience? In the next section, we begin the revolt. We dismantle the mask. We break the scripts. We explore what it means to build an authentic morality, from the ground up, stripped of pretense, performance, and programming. Because the only real morality is one you choose freely. And freedom begins with rebellion. It begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. What if I've been lied to? Not by villains, not by tyrants, but by the very voices that raised you. The gentle hand that told you what's right. The comforting church pew. The praise for being a good boy, a good girl. The filtered smiles on screens that taught you what justice looks like. The algorithms that reward your outrage with dopamine and your silence with invisibility. You were conditioned to believe that morality was a cage made of gold, that the rules were made to protect you. But now, you're beginning to taste the rust in the bars. You don't want to be good anymore. You want to be whole. The rebellion doesn't start in the streets. It starts within, in the war between who you are and who you were told to be. The first weapon is awareness. You must see your moral reflexes not as truth, but as programming. You must interrogate every shame response that tightens your chest. Who benefits when you obey that should? Who gets paid when you buy that virtue? Who feels safer when you bite your tongue in the face of injustice? Ask. Always ask. Especially when the answer makes you uncomfortable. The second weapon is the integration of your shadow. Carl Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You cannot be whole until you embrace the part of you that is selfish, angry, envious, lustful. Not act on it blindly, but own it consciously. That means no more pretending, no more moral gymnastics, no more spiritual bypassing, no more calling your cowardice compassion, your obedience peace, your silence kindness. The rebellion is radical honesty. You want revenge? Admit it. You feel superior? Own it. You lie to look good? Good. Now you're seeing clearly. Only what's seen can be transformed. The third weapon is disobedience. Yes, disobedience. Not to virtue, but to the illusion of virtue. You must begin to say no to goodness when it becomes performance. When morality becomes a leash around your throat. Say no to pleasing people who only love the version of you that serves them. Say no to punishing yourself for outgrowing your past. Say no to silent complicity just because speaking out makes you tremble. Say no to the morality that makes you smaller. And say yes, fiercely, to the morality that demands your full presence. You are not the first rebel. History is filled with those who refuse to swallow the moral narrative fed to them. Socrates, executed for corrupting the youth with dangerous questions. Jesus, crucified for challenging the religious moral order. Galileo, imprisoned for claiming the earth revolved around the sun. Rosa Parks, jailed for sitting where she wasn't morally allowed. Edward Snowden, exiled for revealing truth beneath the patriotic lie. These were not immoral people. They were morally dangerous because they no longer outsourced their ethics. They acted from conscience, not consensus. From principle, not popularity. From inner truth, not tribal code. But don't be fooled. This path isn't glamorous. Real rebellion doesn't earn applause. It earns exile. You'll lose friends. Be called difficult, arrogant, disloyal, ungrateful. Your family may misunderstand. Your community may shame you. Because when you escape the cage, you make others aware of their own. Your freedom will feel like a threat to those still enslaved by the illusion of morality. That's the price of authenticity. But what you gain in return is something far greater than approval. You gain yourself. You begin to build a new morality, not inherited, but chosen. It doesn't come from books or flags or filters. It comes from the burning in your chest when you witness injustice, from the trembling in your hands when you speak a truth that could cost you everything, from the tears in your eyes when you realize you've hurt someone and the courage to make it right. This morality doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be present, to listen, to question, to learn, to take responsibility, not to obey, but to respond with awareness. You don't follow rules like a machine. You respond like a human being, awake in every moment, fully accountable. This is what Viktor Frankl meant when he wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The rebellion is choosing in that space. not reacting from fear or programming, but pausing, feeling, and responding from truth. Sometimes that truth will be uncomfortable. Sometimes it will contradict your past. Sometimes it will isolate you, but it will always be yours. Now take a breath. Let it sink in. You are not your inherited values. You are not your tribe's dogma. You are not the performance of goodness that others demand. You are something deeper, something wilder, something sovereign, and yes, terrifying. Because now, there's no one left to blame, no commandments to hide behind, no collective to dissolve into, no algorithm to tell you what's right. Just you, naked, aware, awake, and that's the true rebellion. Living as though your morality is your own, even when it's inconvenient, even when it breaks the script, even when no one sees or everyone judges. That's not just rebellion. That's liberation. But what lies beyond liberation? What happens when you burn down the old codes and stand alone in the ash? What replaces obedience when it's gone? What fills the space where inherited meaning used to live? Is there something deeper than morality? Something that doesn't ask you to be good, but to be real? Is there an ultimate truth that awaits beyond the ruins of virtue? In the final section, we step across that final threshold. We dive into the abyss beneath all ethics, all systems, all identities. And we emerge with the one insight that shatters all illusions and reweaves them into something transcendent. Because beyond good and evil lies something even more powerful. Understanding, responsibility, love without obedience, truth without permission. And it waits for you on the other side. Are you ready to see it? Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind you, the familiar world burns. Its moral rules, its applause, its punishments. Ahead lies a vast, silent void. No signs, no commandments, no tribes, no promises of heaven or threats of hell. Just you, naked, conscious, free. It should be exhilarating. But instead, it's terrifying, because now there's no script left. No one to tell you what the right thing is. No code to cling to when you're unsure. No badge on your chest glowing gold or red or blue. Just a question echoing inside your soul. If I am not here to be good, then what am I here for? This is the moment many collapse. This is the existential vacuum Viktor Frankl described in man's search for meaning. The terrifying emptiness that follows the death of illusion. Some retreat back to inherited morality, choosing the comfort of the cage over the chaos of freedom. Others drown in nihilism, whispering, "Nothing matters," as they spiral into despair. But a few, a rare few, they stay in the void. They resist the urge to rebuild too soon. They allow the silence to teach them. They wait not for answers, but for realization. And when it comes, it does not arrive as thunder. It arrives as a whisper. You were never here to be good. You were here to be whole. Goodness is a concept, shifting, tribal, historical. Wholeness is a state of being, rooted, expansive, intimate. When you are whole, you do not follow morality. You radiate alignment. You do not ask, is this right or wrong? You ask, is this true? Is this loving? Is this alive in me? And from that living core, action emerges. The ultimate truth is not about right and wrong. It's about congruence. Congruence is when your thoughts, feelings, actions, and values are in harmony. When there is no split between your outer performance and inner knowing. A person in congruence doesn't need rules. They are the rule. Not in arrogance, but in authenticity. They don't ask how to be good. They ask how to be real, even when it's inconvenient. This is what Nietzsche was pointing toward, not the death of morality, but its transcendence. His idea of the Übermensch, the overman, was not a tyrant, but a human who creates their own values, not selfishly, but creatively, spiritually. Someone who no longer lives under inherited gods, but bursts new meaning from within. This is an amorality. It's post-morality, a plane beyond good and evil, not below it, but above it, where the question is no longer, am I right? But am I whole? Am I awake? Am I true to my soul? So what does this look like in the quiet moments of a life? It looks like apologizing not because you were told to, but because your heart contracts when you hurt someone. Saying no to injustice not because it's trending, but because your soul roars in its presence. Leaving a relationship, not out of selfishness, but from the deepest commitment to truth and freedom for both. Creating something no one understands, because it is you, made manifest. It looks like embracing your anger as a sacred signal, your jealousy as a lesson, your grief as a compass, your desire as a prayer. The morality of the future is not universal. It is interior. It is born in silence, not scripture. It listens before it speaks. It transforms shame into inquiry, guilt into action, confusion into depth. And it sees others not as good or bad, but as mirrors, reflecting the parts of ourselves we have not yet loved. Imagine a world where children are not taught to be good, but to be whole, to know themselves, to question, to listen, to cry without shame, to rage with consciousness, to forgive without forgetting themselves. Imagine a politics rooted in congruence, a justice system designed not to punish, but to heal, an economy based not on extraction but reciprocity. Is it utopia? No. There will still be conflict, pain, death, but those things are not proof of evil. They are proof of life. What poisons the world is not pain, but denial. Denial of truth, denial of self, denial of shadow, denial of connection. The ultimate rebellion is to live in radical acceptance of your full self and of others, not as angels or demons, but as fellow travelers stumbling toward light. And in the end, when you shed the need to be seen as good, when you've abandoned the script and embraced the silence, when you can sit with your shadow and smile at it, not flinch, when your love is no longer conditioned by obedience or optics, then something unexpected happens. You become kind, compassionate, just, honest, not because you are trying to be good, but because there's nothing left in you to be anything else. The truest morality emerges not from control, but from liberation. So let us return to the original image. You, standing alone at the cliff's edge. Behind you, the ruins of inherited morality. Ahead of you, the great unknown. You step forward, not because it's safe, but because it's true. You fall and discover there is no ground, only flight, only your own wings, unfolding from the silence of not knowing. And now you understand, beyond good and evil, beyond obedience and rebellion, beyond shame and applause, there is only one thing that endures. A life lived from the core, a truth chosen freely, a soul, whole and awake, walking the world unmasked. That is the new morality, and it belongs to you